Family kicked off flight in viral video. United may have enraged passengers recently for not one, not two, but three pet-related mishaps, but this week it's Southwest's turn to be in the hot seat. The airline is being blasted online after a video of a family getting kicked off a plane unexpectedly went viral. The incident on the Chicago to Atlanta flight began with a toddler refusing to sit in her own seat. A flight attendant called out the dad, who then asked for a minute to calm his kid down. The 2-year-old was already buckled in her seat when another attendant came up and told the family they had to leave. Supposedly, the dad had sniped at the female flight attendant and told her to stay out of his daughter's face. Passenger Alexis Armstrong heard the exchange and started recording with her phone, but was rudely told to stop filming after calling BS on the female attendant's claims. The plane ultimately went back to the gate where the dad, his daughter, and another relative were removed. They were booked on the next flight to Atlanta. Armstrong's video was posted on Facebook and has since gotten over 1 million views. Most netizens slammed the airline for their lack of empathy in dealing with a child, while some insist the flight attendant was merely following FAA rules. Whatever the arguments, there's really only one clear loser here, and that's Southwest. Stay tuned for more airline trouble.
So now you know why they call it cattle class. Angry airline passengers are demanding an explanation after they were forced to stay on board a hot plane for 6 hours with nothing to eat or drink. More than 300 people on Air TRANSAT Flight 157 from Brussels to Montreal on Monday found themselves diverted to Ottawa because of thunderstorms. According to passengers, they were not allowed to get off the plane, even when the air conditioning stopped working and they ran out of food and water. When the plane landed, the crew reportedly said they would stop to refuel for half an hour or so. But 4 hours later, and with the jets still stuck on the runway, the power went out, leaving everyone both figuratively and literally in the dark. TRANSAT somehow managed to get the lights back on, but with no sign to the end of the sweaty situation, at least one passenger called 911. Police, paramedics, and the airport's emergency response team arrived and distributed water, but the airline wasn't happy they were called.
Person who called 911 from this aircraft with the last 4 digits, 0403, please present yourself to the very forward of the aircraft. Thank you for your cooperation.
6 hours after it landed in Ottawa, the plane eventually took off. According to the airport, 20 flights were diverted to Ottawa because of the bad weather, but it was only TRANSAT flights that had such big issues. The airport said staff were on standby with food and water for any plane that requested them, but TRANSAT never did. And when the airport tried to contact TRANSAT to deplane, the airline didn't respond. Montreal-based TRANSAT claimed in a statement that the airport was so packed it couldn't get loading bridges to the plane to get passengers off or refill its empty water tank. Canadian federal authorities have now ordered TRANSAT to explain just why they wouldn't let the passengers get off the plane. United Airlines strikes again. The airline everyone loves to hate is once again in the headlines, this time for giving away a toddler's seat and forcing him to sit on his mom's lap for the entire flight. Shirley Yamauchi and her 27-month-old son were on the final leg of an 18-hour journey from Hawaii to Boston on June 29th. United Airlines agents at Houston's Bush Airport scanned their tickets and let them through without incident. But once on board, a passenger who'd been on standby arrived with a ticket for her son's seat, which she'd paid nearly $1,000 for. She notified a flight attendant about the confusion, but the woman just shrugged and told her the flight was full. Wary of making a scene and getting the David Dow treatment, Yamauchi was forced to hold her son on her lap for the entire 3.5-hour flight. The toddler was in several contorted sleeping positions before eventually ending up standing between her knees. After getting off the plane, Yamauchi told agents at the gate of her ordeal. They directed her to customer service, who then told her to call the hotline. Thanks, guys. So helpful. United's excuse is that the ticket was scanned incorrectly, making it look like it wasn't checked in. Which sounds like a pile of horse dung, if you ask us. The airline's own guidelines require children 2 years and older to have a seat. But guess those rules don't count if there's an opportunity to grab a couple $100, huh? Get it together, United. Father and daughter kicked off Frontier Airlines flight. A man and his daughter are claiming they were wrongly kicked off a Frontier Airlines flight in Orlando last week. Whitney Miller and her father Eric Miller were lucky enough to experience an 8-hour delay, so naturally they weren't in the best mood. Miller and her dad were talking about how miserable the flight crew looked and about how they would never fly Frontier again. Apparently, a flight attendant was eavesdropping in on their private conversation, and after hearing what they had to say, ran off to tell the other flight crew that she felt threatened. And you'll never guess what happened next. Frontier kicked 25-year-old Whitney and her 70-year-old father off the plane. The Millers said they will drive now instead of fly, while Frontier has refunded their tickets. Ah, the friendly skies. In news about airline absurdities, this one really takes the cake. JetBlue put a damper on a Jersey family's Las Vegas birthday bash when they decided to boot them off a flight over a cake. The Burks had brought the buttercream confection with them as part of their carry-on and initially stored it in the overhead bin. When a flight attendant told them they had to move it, they stashed it in under the seat. A second flight attendant berated her colleague and then accused Dad Cameron Burke of being non-compliant. Her behavior struck him as irrational, so he asked if she'd been drinking. She stormed off and another flight attendant asked them to leave the plane, prompting tears from the Burke kids. Port Authority police was called on board, and one officer can be heard saying the family had done nothing wrong. Still, JetBlue reps ordered everyone to deplane in order to get them off the flight.
It's all right, baby boy. I know. Exactly. For cake?
We're just here.
A cake.
We were told that Eric's supposed to actually be taken. Right here, I don't see any wrongdoing.
Thank you.
Okay. So
I moved the cake. It's a birthday cake.
you were done. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
No one's in any trouble. I just need to have your ID, just for a report.
Sure, no problem.
Unfortunately, it got reported to us. No one did anything wrong. Okay.
No problem.
All right. Everyone's gonna be okay, and they're just gonna, unfortunately, they're gonna have to rebook everyone, and that's
rebook everyone.
And this is what we're trying to avoid. That we wish we.
This is JetBlue.
JetBlue. So
JetBlue.
Right? So
wow. Here you go.
Right? Thank you. No one's in any. No, buddy, you're okay. All right. Don't cry. It's all right.
Thank you, Officer Chen. What's your name, Chen?
Hold on. Everyone, stay seated. Okay. Everyone, just stay seated.
Thank you very much.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Don't worry, you'll be all right.
They were refunded in full and ended up taking a United flight to Sin City the next day. Burke is thinking of suing and wants the rude flight attendant fired. But JetBlue is standing their ground, claiming Burke refused requests to remove the cake, yelled and cursed at the crew, and made false accusations about one attendant's fitness to fly.
Southwest passenger loses it. Remember the days when you could light up on the plane? Tell it to Valerie Corbello. The 24-year-old was on a Southwest flight from Portland to Sacramento on Saturday when she started itching for a square. Only problem, the plane was in mid-flight. Corbello went into the bathroom and actually tried to tamper with the smoke detector. That's always a good idea. When other passengers and crew discovered Corbello was trying to smoke, they busted into the bathroom and pulled her out. The 24-year-old was ordered back to her seat, and that's when she lost it. She started yelling, ripped an oxygen mask from the ceiling, and started threatening to off everyone on board and demanding the plane land. Corbello also shoved a flight attendant and had to be physically restrained for the remainder of the flight. She was arrested at the gate and transported to Sacramento County Jail. She was charged with making criminal threats.